Okay, a lot of people are calling this like the worst Traxxas ever made or the most hated Traxxas. I did see Mark Santamaria put out a review on this. I guess he was pretty positive about the buggy, but then he posted a follow-up review saying this is like the most hated Traxxas car. I wouldn't say it's the worst for sure. I don't really get into like the most hated or most loved car or whatever, but we're going to be doing the full review of the JATO 4x4 Brushless. Certainly a very controversial car, I will say that. That is definitely true. Just got released here in 2024. This is the BL-2S 2S version. They will be coming out with a 4S VXL version sometime in early next year. They didn't really announce exactly when. I would guess somewhere in the February or March timeframe, but we'll see. I definitely think people were less than impressed with the speed of this thing, and so they quickly decided we need to also announce the 4x4 4S version and make sure people realize, oh, there's going to be a faster version of that, so if you don't like the speed, there will be that. I do think that will actually backfire a little bit because people are going to see this and say, wow, that thing is so slow, and people are not going to buy this because they're going to wait a few months for the 4S version, although that is quite a bit more expensive. So we're going to be talking about this buggy, doing a full review, going through 6 different categories, giving it a rating from 1 to 5 stars. And the way the reviews work is we compare this to other, what I would call entry-level 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive buggies. So those are going to be the cheaper versions of other brands. So from Team Crawley, you got the Spark 6S, which is their high-end version, and they got the Synchro 4S, which is their low-end version. From Armra, you've got the Typhon 6S, which is their high-end version, and then they got the Typhon 3S, which is their low-end version. From something like Kyosho, you even have the MP10, which is their high-end version, and then you got the Inferno Neo VE, that is their lower end version. So that's how we rate this. We're just comparing it to other lower end 1/8 scale electric buggies and then just talking about how it compares. So everything's great on a curve. 5 stars means best in class, 1 star would mean worst in class, and 3 stars would mean average. So if every other RC car in its class goes 20 miles per hour and this one goes 25 miles per hour, it would actually get a really high rating in performance. But if every other car goes like 40 miles per hour, which is more the case, and this one goes 25 miles per hour, which is the case, then obviously it's going to score worse. So it's all great on a curve. It depends what else is out there. It depends on what you can buy, not any sort of weird, like I just decided this is 8 out of 10. That to me doesn't mean anything. It's all based on what else you can buy in its class. So yeah, let's get into the review. Let's pull off the body. This is what it looks like. I did change out some of the electronics. Stock radio is the TQ radio, fairly poor radio, one of the worst out there. It's not so much the performance or whatever, but there's just no adjustments, including the most important one, I would say, besides trim, which is the adjustment it does have, is dual rate. So there's no way to adjust the steering travel. So on the LCG chassis like this, actually the left hand is a little bit different than the right hand, so you really want adjustments to be able to limit your steering travel so that you're not overstraining the servos. That is something, you know, I really would say is a weakness. Power system comes with is this, the BL-2S. So this is a 2S brushless system. A little, you know, I guess it's 36 by 60 millimeter Canon motor technically, but it is fairly wimpy. You can see the motor wires are tiny. There's barely any power going on through this thing. Even though it's brushless, it's really the speed of the brush system. I think speed-wise they're almost exactly the same, the old Titan 12 turn that they used to have and this guy. ESC is very limited, not much power. You know, even though motor wires you can see are quite thin, and that's just an indication that it just does not provide much. That again is also extremely slow. Even though it's brushless, I would really consider it more like a brushed level power system. Just very limitations there. You can see I even switched it out in mine. Servo is the 2075 plastic geared, fairly weak servo. I think it's 125 ounce-inches of torque. Speed-wise, I think it's somewhere in the 0.16, 0.17, maybe in 0.19 range. Very slow, very weak, plastic geared. Again, I would say that's a very poor servo in this day and age. You know, when the original Traxxas 10 scale cars came out, you know, whatever, 10, 15 years ago, that was a acceptable servo. I would say at this point, it's pretty much not acceptable. So overall, you can kind of guess where I'm going to go with the electronics. The one thing I will say is the receiver is nice because it is compatible with the Traxxas TQI. So you can bind it right up to this Traxxas radio. Much better radio than TQ. It does have lots of adjustments, especially if you get the Bluetooth insert here. the little adapter. You can basically connect it wireless through your phone, make all the adjustments you need, and then you actually get something pretty decent. So overall electronics, I am going to give it a 1-star rating because it is worse in class. It's substantially worse than everything else that you can buy in its type of vehicle, and so it gets a 1-star rating. Now the JATO 4x4 is not totally new. It definitely reuses a lot of parts from the /4x4 LCG. So the chassis is a /4x4 LCG chassis, very low to the ground, also used on the Rally and some other vehicles. The body is really nice. I would say that's a huge improvement or design characteristic that I really like. It does have these 4 little clips that bolt into the side rails there. Easy to take on and off, no body clips that you have to pull out or anything like that. So that is probably the best thing about the design. The rest of the vehicle is pretty much standard Traxxas fare. It does have all the heavy duty upgraded plastics that they've used for the last year or so, the arms, the C-hubs, the Max style universals there, drive shafts. Links are all fixed. It does have a plastic chassis brace down the middle. The shocks are also improved over your standard Traxxas fare. So hopefully they use this on all their vehicles going forward. I imagine they will because this is a BL-2S and so for their lower end stuff, hopefully they'll switch it all out. But these are GTR shocks just in a new composite body or plastic bodied shock. So bigger springs, bigger volume, threaded adjuster. The shock caps don't fall off. Even some choices in pistons. They got these little shock cups that bolt into the bottom rod end. So much better shocks than the traditional Ultra shocks that they normally have had. They're 13mm bore shocks, so you will use 13mm bore springs. Overall design's pretty good. There are some flaws I would say that I don't like. The battery tray is your standard 2S size pack. If you want to run 3S, you will have to run a soft pack. There is no hard case that will fit in this battery strap. Other than that, it's okay. I would have preferred a battery strap or something that could accommodate different heights because most of my 3S packs are hard cases and much taller. Other things I don't like, it did come with a composite or plastic center drive shaft, so I removed that, replaced it with an aluminum piece there. That is just more durable, holds up to like real brushless power a little bit better. I did trim down the wing, so it uses a sledge wing, which is kind of absurdly large. It actually has like this big extension here, some extra pieces down there. I just trimmed it down to make it look like halfway normal on an A-scale buggy. Looks a little better. I don't think it really changed the performance at all, but I wish they would have used a different wing. This wing mount also extends out pretty dang far. It's somewhat exaggerated in this video because there's a little bit of fisheye, or whatever you call it. It's not completely like as big as it looks here in the video. It's a little bit smaller, but it definitely sticks out way farther than normal. They do have the plastic links, not a big fan of that. They do use composite axles as well. So these are 17mm axles, but they are slip-on composite pieces that fit over like the traditional slash axle. It does have aluminum wheel nuts. They are not serrated or anything. Pretty much all the other 17mm wheel nuts Traxxas traditionally sells or comes with the cars have these little nubs that grip into the tires, but this one does not. I imagine part of it is just because with these plastic axles you don't really want to crank them down like you would with a metal axle. I wish they had provided metal axles that would come on the 4S, but something just something to be aware of. They are threaded plastic composite axles. A little bit of a weakness there. Oh, the last thing to note is that it does not use standard 1/8 scale buggy wheels. So those of you that are not into A-scale buggies may not realize this, but every single A-scale buggy sold today uses the same wheels. Same wheel offset, same size, everything is standardized. You don't have to worry about this brand or that brand or, making sure things fit or not. They're all exact same wheel except for this. The Traxxas wheels are different. They are actually wider offset than your traditional A-scale wheels. So if you want to use something like this, a J Concepts A-scale buggy wheel, it's going to be different. It's actually going to be in too narrow and it won't fit right. So that means if you want to use any other tire, you either got to buy Traxxas wheels and tires, or you got to somehow buy Traxxas wheels and then mount up your own tires. So standard off-the-shelf A-scale buggy wheels are not going to fit properly. They're just going to change actually the width of the buggy. It'll be too narrow. So it's probably the only thing I don't like. One other thing to note is they did actually make adjustment to the front end shocks, which is something I've been doing for like 7, 8, 9 years. People that were really serious /4x4 racers were using longer shocks in the front, basically the rear shocks in the front huge improvement in how it actually drives. You get a decent amount of droop. You actually get some nice shock absorption. It works really well. So I'm glad to see that they've kind of listened to what everyone else was doing on their Traxxas Slash and putting in the long shocks up front. They do have little covers here up top. Your front shocks can still get pretty beat up, you know, because they do stick out further than the cover, but you know, it's decent. There's no protection for the front shock tower, so it's nice that they thought about that and included. So yeah, overall in the design category, things that I like, it is based on the Slash 4x4 platform. A lot of upgrades. Everyone knows how to work on this. There are even like pretty good racing adjustments, a lot of camber link location changes, shock mounting location changes. You can upgrade to center diff. Looks like they actually designed this to have rear and front sway bars. That's why the front arms actually flip from like a Slash, so they mount the shocks on the rear, have some camber link holes up front, so you will definitely be able to buy sway bars in the front to you know, improve the performance and the roll of this vehicle. So overall in design category, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. There are some things I really like about it. I am actually a fan of this platform. I think the 10 scale 4x4 platform from Traxxas is one of the better ones out there design wise, and even the things you don't like you can always upgrade. But there are a lot of choices that they made I'm not a big fan of. The fixed links, the composite drive shafts, the limited battery strap there, the composite axles, and then most importantly, I think the weird offset wheels is going to be my biggest gripe. I wish they had somehow tried to design this with standard offset wheels. So yeah, design category, 3 stars. Now, the thing to note about this buggy is I would characterize it as slow for a 1-inch scale 4-wheel drive buggy. There's no doubt about it. That system is way too slow. It goes about 25 miles per hour on the ground, about 22, 23 in the dirt. And that's just not acceptable performance for an 8-scale buggy. I can't think of another 8-scale vehicle that is that slow right out of the box. And for even, you know, disregarding the price, that is quite slow. Now the rest of the vehicle, if you consider how it actually drives, it's actually pretty good. I think this is actually a pretty good handling vehicle. The tires hook up well, pretty good traction in dirt. The steering is actually, you know, decent. Shock suspension, you know, package is actually perfect. Traxxas, when they want to, can actually set these cars up really, really well. They do have the capability. All their 10 scale stuff is actually designed pretty decently. Their XRT, their sledge, the suspension package is actually pretty good. Similar vehicles, the Max, X-Max, you know, it's actually the Max mainly that I would say is quite poor, but they do have the capability and ability to actually tune these things to drive right out of the box. So it handles well, it flies through the air well, you know, a little bit of nosedive, but that's pretty standard for a 4-wheel drive buggy. Suspension works well, steering is good, traction is good. You know, the servo is quite slow, and, you know, upgrading that will make a big change. But, you know, like I say with the electronics, that's really the issue with this buggy. It's not so much the rest of the car, but the electronics that they supply with this is pretty poor. I actually put in an Arma motor and a Dynamite Fuse 2 to 4S ESC that works quite well. Might upgrade the servo at some point, but that's really the changes that you will need to make for performance. The way it actually drives is quite good, but because it is so incredibly slow, I have to give it a below average rating. I'm going to give it 2 stars in the performance category. I know everyone's going to just look at this saying it's slow, it deserves a 1-star rating, and I can see why they would say that, but once you put in a decent power system, the rest of the buggy actually drives well. And so in the performance category, I'm just going to give it 2 stars. It's not a 1-star rating, but it's definitely below average just because how slow it actually drives. The rest of it, I would say, actually drives a little bit better than a Typhon 3S. So the handling of this thing is very good. It's just crazy slow. In terms of durability, I have not broke anything. I was a little bit worried about these composite axles, but they are sleeved over steel, you know, basically drive axles. So that part I think is okay. I think it's probably still worth upgrading these to aluminum axles at some point. Preferably something with a better offset so that you can mount standard 8-scale buggies. But that didn't break, the composite shocks didn't break, the shock caps didn't fall off, so these composite shocks I think actually work quite well. There is a decent variety of springs as well, so you can definitely tune that as well. But the rest of the buggy has held up. The wing was totally fine. You know, I got some scratches here on the shock tires, but that's to be expected with an 8-scale buggy. The body is totally fine, of course, because it never touches the ground. The chassis looks fine. You know, it's got scratches and stuff because it is a composite plastic. But, you know, these new HD parts that they use on the Traxxas vehicles, I think it's pretty good. The hubs, the steering knuckles, the arms, everything, I think, with the latest generation of Traxxas cars is really durability. So I'm gonna get 5 stars in the durability category. I am happy to see that, you know, they got rid of the Ultra shocks. These shocks are way better. I think they'll also be more durable. I've never broken like a Traxxas slash chassis, so I would say that's actually a really nice thing. Fixed links don't have as much adjustments, but when it comes to durability, they're always going to perform a little bit better than the steel and shock rod and style turnbuckles that you would find on an adjustable one. So overall, durability, 5 stars. This is a very durable vehicle. No concerns there. I don't think you have much issues. I think the axles do have the potential to break because they are plastic, but you know, that's not something I encountered. So 5 stars in the durability category. The best thing about owning a Traxxas is that the support and maintenance is very good. You can walk into any hobby shop here in the US. They will always have Traxxas parts on hand. The Slash 4x4 on which this is based has been around a long time. So everyone's going to know what parts to upgrade, what parts break. You know, the center drive shaft, I was able to walk into my local hobby shop, pick one of those up. You know, a lot of the parts are going to be hanging on the wall, and so even if you do break it, which I don't think you will really, you'll have the parts fairly easily to be able to fix it. Warranty on this guy is 30 days only for the electronics. If they break, I wouldn't even bother warranting. I would just upgrade because that's something you'll just want to do. But you know, that's decent. I would say a lot of other companies actually have longer warranties. The Armor warranties are definitely much better. So that's a little bit down from what some of the other companies offer. But I'm still going to get 5 stars within the support and maintenance category. This thing is also easy to work on. It is made in Taiwan. Actually, the screws and stuff are higher quality than other brands. So Armor screws or other brands, they definitely use cheaper screws. These are not going to strip on you as easily as other brands, in my opinion. So there is something to be said about higher quality parts, easier to walk around, less likely to cause you problems in the future. So in the sport and maintenance category, definitely one of the highlights of the JATO 4x4 is that it is going to be high at 5 stars. Now, probably the biggest controversy after the speed of this thing is the price. So in my first video, I said it was $399. I was wrong, so I admit it. That came out before the actual pricing was announced. I was told $399, but it's not. It's actually $349.95. So that is a little bit higher than the other BL-2S 4x4 vehicles from Traxxas, which I think is fine. But you have to compare this to other vehicles out there, not just other Traxxas vehicles, right? There's a lot of other things you can buy in this class. Like I mentioned, the Synchro 4 is $369, but they pretty much have a perpetual $30 off promotion from the official dealer here in the US, Hobby Recreation Products. So it's always $30 off. So it's really more like $340. That is a 4S vehicle, goes about double the speed, probably in the mid 40s. This is about 25. That's probably about 45 or 48, something like that. Much faster, aluminum chassis, 3 differentials, much better radio, power system, servo, everything is better electronics wise. Shocks are going to be composite on both, so I wouldn't say there's much of a difference there. But that vehicle, steel drive shafts, it's really a true A-scale buggy in a 4S system, a little bit down spec from their Spark, but you know, at $10 less than this, you got to say that is a way better value. That would probably be a 5-star rating. Other competitors, Typhon 3S would be the main one, right? That is cheaper than this. That's $329, so $20 cheaper. It's again got a 3S system, much better radio and receiver, servo. All the electronics are 10 times better than this thing. It does have some plastic ring and pinion gears in the disc, so I will say that it has a slipper just like this thing. Between the two, I'd say they're pretty much equal in terms of the slipper. This is not the upgrade slipper, by the way. I believe they have a Revo spec one, which is a little bit better. This is their low end slipper, so not even their good stuff there. I think the motor mount design on this thing is a little weird. You know, it's got these inserts which holds it in place, but the motor mount is attached to the buggy with one screw there, so you definitely want to make sure that doesn't come out. It's got a little clip there on the other end. So yeah, design of that thing is a little bit worse. The Typhon does have a composite center shaft, so I would say that's equal, but it's less money. It's way faster. That one's closer to like 50 miles per hour, 48, 49, 50, somewhere around there. This is 25, and so performance is going to be way higher than that. It's cheaper. I would say this probably drives a little bit better in terms of the handling, but the power way out matches it with the Typhon. So Yeah, in the value category, I'm going to give it 2 stars. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing. It is made in Taiwan. It's got some decent parts. You know, all the plastics are really good on the thing. The body, clipless body thing works pretty well. Some of the design choices, I'm not a big fan of like the battery strap as much as I would just a simple battery strap that can accommodate different sizes. But, you know, overall value-wise, I'm going to give 2 stars. It's not the worst thing out there. It does need a better power system. I wish they would have just added $50 of price, sold it for like $3.99. Put the 3S VXL brushless system in this thing. That doesn't have to be crazy fast, you know. That can be just something adequate to get you at least into the 35 mile per hour range. That's what you need in this class when you're spending $350 or more dollars. $400 for this thing with the 3S VXL system, I would say again was you know, barely acceptable price. But at $350 for an absurdly slow buggy, I'm going to have to give it 2 stars, a below average rating. So final thoughts, what's the verdict on the JATO 4x4 Brushless? First off, they should not have called it the JATO. I mean, the JATO is a 2-wheel drive, nitro-powered stadium truck. This is a 4-wheel drive electric buggy? Like, that makes no sense at all. So Traxxas has been kind of weird with the names lately. You know, they finally renamed the Haas to the Stampede, which they should have done when they first released. So they eventually correct things. You know, they had to change the Mud Boss to the Modified. Again, they had to fix things with the name. So maybe they'll fix the name with this and call it something else. But anyways, that's just a minor detail, just something that does bother me a little bit as a nitro head. But yeah, JATO 4x4 Brushless. I've told you the highs and lows. Support and maintenance is really, really good. Durability is really, really good. Design, I think, is fair. You know, definitely things I like about this platform that gives an edge over some of the other vehicles out there. It's just down-spec'd with the electronics way too much. They just went way too cheap on this thing. They should just keep the 3S VXL, throw it in this thing, call it the Brushless VXL, whatever you want, 3S VXL, whatever you want to do. That would have been fine. It's just way too slow, and I think it's going to hurt them a bit. So, you know, other people are making videos on this. Some of them may have gotten them for free. I paid mine. I actually paid more than I should have for this buggy. So I'm just telling you my honest opinion. It's way too slow. The rest of the vehicle, pretty good. It handles well. Is it a race vehicle? No, it's not going to compete against like a Kyosho, Inferno, Neo, VE even, I don't think. Synchro 4 actually handles quite well. One of the best handling 4 as, you know, entry-level vehicles. This handles quite well. Put on some sway bars, aluminum drive shaft, some proper tires for the track, and I think it would be fun to you know, drive around. I would not pick this as a race buggy, but you know, it's good to see, and I'm actually happy that Traxxas went into something new. So they released an A-scale e-buggy. I think that's great. They released it as a super low spec. I was not a fan of that. They are coming out with a 4x4 VXL, which is going to, or 4S VXL, which is going to cost $529. That's just going to be way too much. I mean, I'd buy a Kyosho MP10E over that. A true A-scale e-buggy that's just honestly going to kick that thing's butt. I don't have a 4S VXL, obviously, but I've driven this. I've got the Kyosho MP10. Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the differences between the bikes. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the JATO 4x4 Brushless. I don't see too many people making videos on this, so I thought I would throw mine out. I think people are just going to wait for the 4S. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that's probably what people are doing because there doesn't seem to be as much interest in this as it is, which is unfortunate because the buggy itself is really good. It just should have came with a better power system, better radio as well. The TQ radio is just way too low end of a radio for a $350 car. And if they had done it that way, 3S VXL released that, cool, $400, $429 if you really must, fine, do that. And then release the 4S version if for some reason you felt that was still necessary, $529, okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. But that's the way I would have done it if I were Traxxas. I think they would have got a lot more interest. I think people would have realized potential and actually the good points of this buggy once they get past the speed, and that would have done a lot better in the market. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the 4x4 VXL. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more of you soon. Take care.